So hi everyone. So my name is Lisa, and I'm not a tech expert or a social media expert. But actually the problem I was trying to solve was around the student research problem rather than trying to find a way to bring social media into my education. So it's a little bit in reverse order, but I'm so pleased that I started on this journey, and I just feel like it has opened so many avenues for me and for my students and for just building a network. And I am very conscious that basically I am between you and the weekend, so I'm not going to spend any longer on this than we need to. But hopefully you'll still be able to keep on board for the next 30 minutes. So one of the things that we use at Queen's is called VBox. So I don't know whether you have used VBox before. You don't have to pay for it. You do have to do a subscription to set it up, and Queen's has that. But if you go just to your phone and just type in vbox.app, it'll ask you for the session ID, and hopefully you'll be able to join our session. So maybe if you give me a thumbs up if you are able to get that to work. I hopefully have it open. So it's just vbox.app. Yay. Okay, so I'm just going to open, let's see, the first poll. So I would do a lot of polls with the students, and normally I just start with something really basic, and this can be like live in class or in the break or even outside of class, and I normally just ask them, how are you doing? And normally I just have awesome, good and not good, and what I do then is I follow up with every single person that says not good, because I mean it's just so insightful. It might just be I'm just having a bad day, I've had a bad result, or there's something else going on. So if you are able to get in there, yeah, I've got some people in there, yes, some people are working on. So I changed it this time to holding on to the last straw. If you're at the point that you can't afford anyone to take this straw in case they break it, then you're probably in good company with the rest of us. So we got some people in there doing the poll. I'm going to stop the poll. Hopefully now we'll be able to see some of the results. Not sure if it's going to show up or not. It's showing up on my screen, so most people are just about hanging in there. So thank you for that. So a little bit about me. I'm a bit of a varied background. I'm more from a sports background, and my subject area is finance, but really judo and wrestling are my thing, and I do a lot of coach education. And with coach education, it exposes you to so many different types of learners, and that has really influenced me in terms of what I do in the class. I've got two kids, Connor, and anyone familiar with Down syndrome will recognise that. And my daughter, Lisa Rose, who's had enough of being a girl and decided that being called So's is much better, and we love her for that, and our rescue dogs. So what's the problem that I'm trying to address? Well, I teach a lot of areas, but the work that I'm going to talk about today is for my master's students. So masters in finance students and masters in finance and accounting students, really they come into like this myriad of issues. So a lot of staff will come to me because I'm a director of education as well and complain about the students' language and the students' engagement, and they don't turn up to class. And, you know, a lot of it is because they don't understand the problem. And here's some of the things the problems that I was trying to solve. You know, the first one, ghosting. Students that are on your roster and like suddenly an assignment appears and you know that you haven't seen them at all and you're not even sure if it's their own work. The X for being just afraid of being wrong. The fact that, you know, what's the point? You know, I'm so done with assignments and I'm not making a contribution. Is it really you? Or is AI writing this work on assignment, or is it actually coming from you? The fact that we have loneliness, lots of students who are in big crowds and big groups, but, you know, maybe they feel isolated and don't feel part of something. There's the language barriers. It's so difficult for someone to sit down and write a large piece of text in another language. I couldn't do it. And so I'm really just in awe of my students who are able to do it. You know, the empty brain, because so many of my students just don't think that they have anything important to say, or that their experience matters, or that they have any learning that they can bring to the table. And through the work that we do is to try and get them to show them, actually, you have so much value. There's so much help that you can give, so much learning that you can share. and then getting started, the whole procrastination of that's not due for another 8 weeks, so I'll start it tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes 7.5 weeks, and then you get a barrage of all these panic emails of students trying to get up to speed. So it wasn't just about getting better research, it was actually recognizing how are we going to tackle all these other problems and things that go behind. So what can we do? Well, I just looked and said, well, the first thing is if it's not fun, we're not learning. So the problem is research has become like a task, something that you have to do, something that, you know, maybe you've not done well in your first semester, so you think that you can't do and then you're not good at. And then it's like, well, how do I take the skills that I want them to learn and the learning outcomes that I need them to do and get over the end? And I said, well, I'm going to have to take control. It's going to have to come from me. So I have another question. So I'm going to open another poll. And I just want to ask you, and again, when I share the slides, and so I'll be able to add in the updated answers, but hopefully you've got a poll now to answer. And so I'm talking about work. So probably lots of people have social media that they share with their family, but do you have any social media that you go, that's my work account and that's what I use to promote me within a work platform? So yeah, lots of people responding. Yeah, most people using it either within one site or trying to get started. Some people are like, no, not work. I don't need the 24-hour constant feed or need to check and things like that. So I'm going to stop the poll. And again, I'll add the answer of the slides. The majority of people are really active on one site. So just to give you a bit of a background to the assignment that I put up is basically students have to create a research blog. So they pick a topic, and this year I actually gave them options of topics so that they weren't going to cross each other in terms of topic selection. And I made sure that it was a focus on essentially the last 6 months, because then this is how I got around the problem of, well, I'll look at what a student did last year, because again, they have to focus, particularly I'm in finance, so they have to use a lot of the numbers and the data and the current case studies, but they essentially have to write a blog. But that's not the only thing that they do. It's actually wrapped around this idea of essentially sharing that research, learning that research, and developing that research. So the assessment only happens at the very end, but the work happens all the way through. For the majority of them, I've only ever had, I think, 3 students that have blogged before. So the majority of them have not blogged. They're quite worried about this as a type of assignment. You know, I do say in class, I'm optional for accounting and finance. And I say, if you are hoping to be able to turn up at the end and hand in an assignment, choose a different module, because you do my class, you're going to work. You'll be rewarded for the work, but you are going to have to work. And that tends to get me more students rather than less. So I must be doing something wrong there as well. So one of the things I learned to do in terms of improvements over the last period of time was when you do a blog that's online, when you've Twitter online, like how do you actually present that to an external examiner? It's a live document, it's a moving document. So what I do is I get them to complete this template that they submit through Turnitin. So in that, they'll show me their blog address, they'll show me their Twitter address. Previously, I got them just to show me the Twitter work that they'd done, but this year I changed it to get them to talk about their interaction. Because again, if they'd never used Twitter before and they talked about how they'd learned and developed, they would get full credit for that, as opposed to maybe someone who was pretty active in Twitter, who is only doing more of what they'd practiced before. And then they were able to put in their stats on number of engagements, views, reactions, tweets, and not just, oh, here are the 10 things I wrote, because some of the weak students were writing, my blog is now available. Hey, my blog is now available. Hey, have you seen my new blog? And that's their Twitter activity, which, as you know, is not going to achieve any of the ends that we would want them to do. And then they would then put in essentially details of their blog posts as well. So while I would assess in terms of their live sites, I go to their live sites, this document is able to go through Turnitin. Now, one of the things that you have to know is obviously we don't want to have plagiarism, we want it to be their own writing. They have to know it's being checked, which is why I do the Turnitin. But just to let people know that you can actually go into Turnitin and you can exclude sources. So when I do this, sometimes students come to me in a panic and say, oh, it's 80% plagiarized because it's referencing my own blog. And then I'm able to explain to them, if they haven't been to class, I show them how I can essentially remove their blog from the list, and then they can see the list of the other sources, and that tends to deal with any concerns around plagiarism. Because again, I just found it difficult to represent to the external examiner on the assessment end of their own work, the originality of it, and essentially how it was assessed, but while keeping the documents as a live document and allowing students to continue to work on them. How I mark it is again around sort of 3 areas, and the research itself is actually only the last 40%. So I look first of all about the blog design, and this is really about how you present your work. So this is not an essay. How do I make it engaging? How do I take what I've learned? And I'm thinking back to, I'm going to now use the sketch note and stuff and that we've seen earlier, and getting students to sort of think not just about what they have found, but how are they going to communicate that? Then there's a section purely on Twitter. Now, why have I chosen Twitter? Well, the main reason I've chosen Twitter is because the majority of our students are not on Twitter. Twitter's not cool, okay? So it levels the playing field a lot more than if I were to go onto another site. It's also really active for people that are in the business sector. So in terms of making connections with someone who works in a company who you might want to work for in the future, it's a great way of connecting with those people. I thought about, and I tinkered a little bit with LinkedIn, but it's just too boring and it's just too formal, and it just doesn't feel like it's fun or interactive to work with. And so I've stayed with Twitter, and that's worked really, really well. And they're assessed on 3 things. The first thing is the homepage. I actually do a whole session with them, a whole tutorial on designing their homepage and about their digital identity and how they're presenting themselves, imagine, to a future employer. So I need to show the link to my blog. I need to show my profile of my face. How many people want to choose cats for some reason as their profile picture? Again, and it's just, this is your platform to sell you into the future, and links, and then links to the university and what they've done previously. And so they're assessed on that. Then they're assessed on the relevance of their posts and their tweets. So it isn't just, here's my blog, it's who have I interacted with, who have I spoke to, who have I connected with, where's the information that I'm sharing? So because I could easily just retweet other posts, but I'm not going to give credit to that over someone who's made an attempt and an effort to actually create their own posts. And then the last part is really the core research point. And when the students realise that they're not assessed to the end, that means that they can change their writing, they can update their writing. They realise and then they can see everyone's blogs, because they're all connected to each other on Twitter. So then they can see they're using other references, they're supporting good data here. Maybe I need to go back and review and reflect on my blog so I can improve my work. So they're getting feed forward all the time. Now I start by about week 4, I have a separate submission where you tell me what your Twitter page is, what your blog page is, what your structure of your blog is going to be, and it's not assessed. It's purely for feed forward. And sometimes the students say to me, oh, I want to do something different now from what I told you in my plan. I said, that's brilliant. That shows me you've learned something. That shows me you found something or a path of interest, or you've realised that you've picked too broad a topic. You're not assessed against what you told me you were going to do. That was just to get you started. Students struggle so much just to get started in work. And I completely understand that, because I feel like that too. The students that do really well have really good supporting literature. So as I say to them, this is a research blog. This is not your opinion blog. This is a research blog, so it has to be supported by the evidence. Again, how do we communicate that? So those that take the step from here's what I found to actually how can I present that to be useful is something students really like. How original is it? So have they just gone down what we've seen before, and we haven't tried to find an STG angle or an equity angle or something of interest? Again, so the students that have worked harder can get rewarded here really well. And then is there underlying data and information? Because there's still a tendency to, I think, this is my opinion, that these are problems, and they're not supported and backed up. So students can do really well in this task, even if they find that they're not good researchers. And it's just incredible to watch. It's almost like the snowball that builds every single week, and you see their confidence building, you see their language building, because they're so afraid to be told that they're wrong or to look stupid. And then when they're realizing how, they can write, 20 words and suddenly that counts towards their assessment, and the next time it's 20 words and an emoji, and then it's 30 words, and then it's a response, and those things that just really help build a sense of community. So if you want to look up what we're doing, we use a hashtag, which is QUB MSc bloggers. And if you're just writing about yourself, you drop the S. So we do have QUB MSc blogger as well. But pretty much our community is the MSc blogger community. And it's been going for 4 years now. It started out of COVID because my class was sent home and I thought nobody knows each other. They're all sitting in their own rooms. How am I going to get them to engage? And I mentioned already, we have the first workshop where I get them to set up their homepage profile and add their pictures and add their links to their blogs. And then I normally start with something really simple, like tell us about your day. What was your impressions when you arrived in Belfast? Anything at all. So in this one, I was asking my former QUB bloggers to essentially welcome the new community. And you can see so many people come in. I think this one alone, I just checked this today, had like over 8,000 views. So it's really, it really is a big community, and there really is lots of people who have created this alumni network that they can talk to each other and support each other. They can keep the research going after they leave Queen's. And you know that thing of where 2 years later, oh, what happened to such and such? Well, you don't have your Queen's email anymore, or you don't use it. You've actually got a way to get back in contact with the rest of your classmates. Separate to that, then, on a regular basis, I do polls in Teams to see how they're doing. So this is just my week 1 poll, which is like, just how you feeling? I mentioned already, and at this point, generally everyone's pretty good. They haven't had their first semester results now, to be fair. And again, I just ask them, do you have a Twitter account? And you can see here that the majority of people have one but don't use it, or they don't have one at all. So you can see here that 98% or whatever of students have not used Twitter. So that makes it sort of pretty even. And then I asked them, what are you expecting from the course? This is one of the sort of first couple of questions that you've seen. And you can see that they're just thinking about an exam. They're just thinking about, they don't even have an exam, I have a class test. But that's what's in their mind, because what they're thinking at that point is about getting the best degree outcome they can. And I completely understand that. But students are not the best at making good and informed decisions, because yes, I want them to do really well in their exams, but actually I want them to get an incredible graduate job. I want them to have amazing memories from their time at university. I want them to have a really strong network that they can connect with afterwards. I want to feel like they've developed and grown and not just had a badge and a stamp that says, I have a degree. And they really get that whenever they go through the course this way. I say this is the halfway point then, the week 5 poll, and you can see here that most people are still doing good, not so many people doing awesome, but we've had a few people here that are starting to get stressed and starting to panic, and then you're able to reach out to those and just say, just following up there, you said you weren't feeling too good. It's never bad or anything terrible, but it's enough for someone to say, yeah, I'm not prepared to tick the good box today. And maybe it's something that I need to do, maybe it's support that I need to give. And one of the things that I do is I do like an online hour. So we have these consultation hours that nobody ever goes to, and I've just switched those to online. And then I started asking them, like, when suits you around your timetables? Let's have conversations. Let's do some shared reading. Let's tweet each other. We really get tweets up. Let's work with each other and get that up. And it works really, really well. And you can see that the students engage. Really helps me for attendance monitoring and things like that, because this tells me when they've responded, the time that they've responded, and I know that essentially they're really active in their learning. But it just goes like so much more and beyond just tweeting about their blog, and you can see here, like, these are some examples of students that have tweeted about a topic and other students getting involved and asking questions and, hey, I see what you're doing there and I like that link and that's really interesting. And I've just given some examples here, and this is the more recent ones, some recent ones from May, and this is after our project has finished. And the students they're still interested and they're talking to each other, and they're yeah, absolutely right, Suzanne. It's a full community, and I have about 300 in that community now because I've been doing it for so many years. This is a number of tweets that have happened after the research blog part of it is finished. I love this one from Manu, one of my students from last year, that says, not just a university, like, essentially it's everything to me. They tweet about the stuff that they've learned about in class, the weather, St. Patrick's Day, just loving to keep the research going, tweeting about what's happening and things that are going forward. And you're able to even identify people that have dropped out, people that aren't responding. So you're getting those that aren't being as active. And for the students that are really weak and really concerned, I start just with, right, just like, I'll set a tweet, right, you like it. Now you like it, and then you reply to it. Now reply or retweet with a quote, right? Now you start to link into someone else. Because remember, they're only assessed at the end. So they're able to build up that set of skills, and it's transferable into pretty much any type of social media. But you know, whenever you're able to go to a job interview and say, hey, tell us something about you or something that you've done, you say, well, actually, I'm really interested in sustainable development goals. In fact, I have a blog and a research blog where I talk about that in your company. Suddenly the employer's going, wow, this is someone who's really engaged with our community, is up to date with the news, knows what's happening, and it's unique to them. Many of my students are international, and I can see from, particularly on the research blogs, and I say to them, get your family to follow you. Because whenever you're not with your family member and they're away studying, they're actually seeing every single week the work that they're doing. They're seeing the photographs from where they are. They're seeing the people that are coming in and thanking them and liking them for their work. So I see the family members leaving comments on blogs, that's a really good blog. And, so even those connections that they feel with home. And, I'd even had one of my students who, unfortunately, her pet had died whenever she was with us, and she was really upset. And we were able to talk and, share some pictures and just, and she was able to get, continue on and get through your studies, because it's particularly for international students, it's really, really tough. But the fact that the students want to be part of this, the fact that I still have students following the MSc blogger link, even though they're not part of it anymore, and it really is something that they're very, very proud of. Like they have a great pride, like they feel this sense of identity and they feel like they're noticed. And, again, I do take a lot of time because, I do set up time to go through, because I can filter on the hashtag. I made that mistake the first time of not having a hashtag. So I can go in and search for the hashtag. I can see all the latest tweets. So I'm able to and there's something nice about your lecture saying, hey, I like what you wrote there, or giving you a response or asking you a question. And again, just that sense of breaking down those barriers and everyone pretty much being equal on that. Now, I'm going to open the poll again, because I'm interested in your thoughts, feedback, reflections. What are you thinking? What are your questions? I didn't know you were going to be so active and it's on the chat, so I'll have a little look to see there. Yeah, so basically what we have is within our faculty, we have a set of digital champions. Student digital champions are actually paid posts, but they are students. We have a set of guidelines around blogging about social activity. They actually sign up to a code of conduct. I mean, and you didn't have a lot of time, I didn't want to put everything in. So they sign up to a code of conduct before they set off on this journey of social media. They have essentially the champions who are on access to them essentially 24 hours a day to ask them questions. They come in and give additional workshops as well. Because again, I'd have some students putting their student number, for example, in their blog, and I have to contact them and say, you don't put that information out public, you still see them doing that. But the fact that we have this central team within our faculty that are supporting this work, and they love it too, because once I have the blog, then when there are opportunities come up or there's news stories, I add the tag so that our students are essentially getting the prompt to say that an event is happening, or there's an opportunity that they can apply for, or they've had some sort of recognition on what we've done. Okay, so again, thinking about, do you have concerns about using social media in this way? Is there something putting you off? Is there a barrier, for example? So things like that, maybe to put into the poll. Yeah. The fact that it is, as I would say to my students as well at the start, I say I get so many requests for references, and if I get a reference and I go, who is that person? I said, you will get a reference, but it's going to be a very basic one. I said, and it's a bit like going to employers. Like if you have someone on social media who is working, in a good position, maybe in one of our companies that employs us, you can go to that person and you can ask them a question. I have an assessment centre coming up. Could you give me some help? But they're not going to help you if you've never engaged with them before. But if you've been following their tweets and you've been asking questions and you've been retweeting and you've been engaging in the subject matter, you've actually broken down those barriers and you've made a connection before you've needed to make the connection. And I said that's a really good place to be, when it comes to the next step beyond your university, because now you're opening doors. When they get a query from you, they can look back at your profile and they've learned about you. They can see what you're interested in. They can see your subject areas, and you're giving yourself a really nice way to work with that. So again, just a question around GDPR. So I'm not sure, maybe give me a bit more detail on what the concern is around the GDPR. So they don't share any of their student information. They're not doing any primary research, so they're only using secondary research. In finance, it's easier because we use a lot of data and economic data, and that's just been published all the time. At the minute, we're talking about the collapse of SV Bank, the inflation, cost of living. So they're essentially talking and writing about, they're not sharing anything personal from that point of view. So I'm not sure if that's quite what you mean, but I wouldn't be using this to share any sort of primary research or anything like that. It's certainly fun. Yeah, I agree. I find it fun. I find it interesting. And different groups take it different ways. So I have other groups, for example, that we created something called Sunday Funday. So we created basically happy hour, because again, it was like, and we called it Monday, you know, when it's still Sunday, but you're thinking about Monday. And we would just meet for an hour, and we just like had little online quizzes and bingo and other questions, and the students can use all that. That's all credited in that part of the assignment.